meeting. If anyone else wants to report it, they need to let us know. Is there any public comment at this time? Oh, actually, can I have a motion to accept the agenda or to make any alterations? Ray, did you want to alter the agenda?
Oh, why? Because
Take the public schools first,
I would appreciate that.
after consent, with
Yeah.
all business.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a concern with making that change?
I think that Petrini wants to be heard with you, but he just stepped out.
Yeah, I think they talked about it.
Okay, all right.
Mark?
Yeah.
I told him that,
Okay.
try it and
Okay.
stick around for that.
Okay, so with the agenda amended to hear a preliminary review prior to old business, all those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda? And any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to consent. Any questions about consent?
Yeah, why did 15 meter, which was discussed on Tuesday, is going to the beginning of this today, get moved to consent?
Do you know the answer to that?
I think they're two different items. What's in front of you on consent is the hardscape plan.
Okay.
He was in the office of Linda on Tuesday and updated the plans, and I can pass it around if you'd like to see.
It's essentially the same thing.
Okay, that was my only question.
I'm not seeing anything else.
I think on Tuesday, there was like an issue with the heights and the two structures being different.
The heights on the what? I couldn't
On the
hear.
two structures being different?
Yeah.
Linda's downstairs.
Okay, but that's not, it's not on? Okay,
Oh, okay.
so you just said that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, do you have any concerns?
Nope.
This is a motion? Sure, I'll remove it. All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, okay. And the public
Uh,
schools?
You abstain, right, John?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, John abstains. I don't.
Is it possible to connect to the projector, or am I just...
I can see if,
Is that wishful
Linda,
thinking?
do you know how,
We've done consent, we've moved up the schools.
Did you
Everybody
deal-
has to leave.
Did you deal with,
Consent is all set.
yeah, including change in that one consent item? Which? Number meter? I mean, number 2 on consent?
Change
Second
entrance
number
to
one.
for
Well, it was approved per the agenda.
Okay, because what we did on Tuesday is we approved it, dropping it down from the ridge, which is 22 feet high. If we dropped it down from the ridge on the dormer, it's gonna be a 3-inch pitch.
you're talking for Corby?
Yeah, so they just asked to leave it at the ridge at 22 feet, because it's a short little one-story house.
Fine with me.
Okay, so that's what you already did that. So Ben is okay with that. As he drew.
As it states here?
Yeah.
Great.
For the school?
Yes.
School? Who made it in? Dick?
It's all here, Dick's here.
Everybody's here? Ray has to go because he's got a meeting. So we're gonna switch it and do.
We already did.
Yeah, we rearranged the agenda. Just to put this through.
Nope.
Yeah, that doesn't go for a full hour. You're on one of your forums.
That's one from over here.
Dawn is not in. Go for the school.
Yeah.
I might have 32.
Yes, that one. That's it. Anybody who's in the school want to come up, you come on up. Are you all okay back there? You want to tell Carrie your Dick Webb? Carrie?
Yes, for the record, I'd like to introduce the team. My name is Dick Webb, with SMRT Architects and Engineers, representing the public school system on the new Nantucket Elementary School project. With me today also is Paul Lewandowski, architect for the project, along with Rob Hannon, also architect for the project with SMRT. One of our key architectural consultants, a gentleman you're very familiar with, Mickey Rowlands, also is here present and representing the school system, Diane O'Neill and Superintendent Kozort. And last but not least, to observe is Kate Everett, our mechanical engineer, who we were looking at the school earlier. But again, this is architectural review, and Paul, I think Paul and Mickey are going to
Just got the blue screen of death.
on the presentation.
You go across the hall and get some.
No, it's good. I'm just at the reboot. I apologize.
You've had some issues with this thing.
No, I think that
with other people.
I assume the projector will work. It's my computer
Never
didn't
seen.
like moving with me.
Maybe while Paul is hopefully working out that technology, just a bit of background. SMRT has been assisting the public school system really since last fall, looking at different site development options and some very, very conceptual planning for the school as it relates to the program needs of the educational models for the new school. To that end, we have had preliminary discussions with two of your members at the very, very conceptual stage. But again, the purpose of today is now that we are, now that the project's, I'll say we're a little more efficiently engaged and moving forward with schematic design. The intent of today is, i.e. meeting number one, to present some initial thoughts and certainly get your comments and reactions to that, and at the beginning of the dialogue.
So I apologize, my computer is rebooting for me, but it'll be up in a moment. What we've done is we've been working in computer modeling, three-dimensional modeling, to develop the building. So what you'll see are a number of options today. We wanted to have discussion about different pieces. That should be fine. It's just as soon as I'm up, it'll be.
One person that can do it.
The images will look more finished than they really are. This is the beginning of the process for us, so don't feel like anything is anything is set in stone. We're really excited to be able to have the opportunity to present and talk to you about what this building will look like.
Do you
So,
want to give the timeline? Mike?
yes, we can.
Timeline?
Well,
It is a town meeting.
Right, we have a town meeting on April 6th, Monday, April 6th, with an affirmative vote. It will go to ballot on April 14th. If we're successful at both of those, the design and engineering is already begun, but will begin in earnest after that. And we would anticipate possibly a December 17 opening. We'd love to make that September 17. I think that's the goal, but as we know on Nantucket, it's subject to weather conditions and a lot of different things.
Snow.
So is that what you were looking for, Linda, on the time frame?
Yeah, there's just some quizzical looks about, takes 2 years to build it type thing.
I'm sure they'll address
The
it.
design process is starting as of now. We're going to referendum, as we've just discussed, and then assuming passing of the referendum, then we will begin the design process, or continue the design process until November of this year, and that's when the project would go out for bid. So our design process will be from now until November of this year. So after that, there's a process where those who've been involved in projects, there will be a general contractor brought on board, as well as bids for subcontractors, and then the project will probably start construction in January of 2016 or so.
Dawn?
When do you anticipate a formal submission to this?
Well, that's one of the questions I guess I have for the board. We anticipate that we'd like to work with you until the referendum, but until the referendum we wouldn't have a final product. So I believe it would be after that.
Or after town meeting?
After town meeting.
After the vote?
After the vote, yes. Shortly after that, right.
Anybody else have any questions about the timeline? Because I think what one of your objectives is, like the hospital, a bunch of these big projects that are at town meeting, you'd want some sort of a schematic on a poster board in the front hall.
We have that, we've developed that now, and I can bring that, I'll bring those images up first.
It looks like spring.
Is there some type of schematic on the Nantucket Public School website?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
So this is these are the images that were produced in December of last year. So showing the entrance, a few entrance views here, and then a close-up of that entry.
To orient you, that faces the front door of the current school.
I'm going to pull up.
So they face together, so there's a little plaza in between, so you can access in between the two schools. So the outside faces Bacchus, and part of the outside face is coming down Bacchus, and it's partly towards Surfside Road. So they face this way, so they're like a little circle.
Here is the floor plan for the, that we're looking at. So this is Bacchus Lane over here. Surfside kind of comes here. You can see outlined here is the existing school.
Surfside is over there.
Oh, sorry, Surfside is here, right.
There's a lot here with a house.
Yeah, there's some houses here. I can pull up the site plan.
So where is that 45-degree portico in this plan that we just saw?
It is not in that plan.
It would be-
We've
Would it
revised.
be coming out of the middle of that
middle thing
elbow?
there.
Yeah, we've got some images of this based on this plan.
Mhm.
The 45-degree portico was something we developed at the last phase, and we've been refining that, and it's one of the things we'd like to speak with you about
Okay.
today. So, so just to break down the plan of the school for you, we've developed it as 4 bars. As you know, this is a 70,000 square foot facility for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And there are a total of 27 classrooms plus 3 cluster spaces. So there's a lot of program. It includes a media center, cafeteria, a full kitchen, art and music rooms, loading dock for to supply the school, obviously administrative center, and then a gymnasium as well. So what we've done to try to break down the mass, because it's such a large building, is develop these 4 bars, and you can sort of see them here. And that, what we're doing with that is trying to develop, we're trying to get a roof pitch that isn't giant. So I want to go into some of the views, but I don't know if there's any other questions on the plan before we do that.
Do you have any questions on that?
Well, 4 bars, could you,
Yes. So this we're calling this 1 bar, but what happens is we combine 2 bars into a cluster for each grade. So 3rd grade is on the 1st floor, 4th and 5th grade are on the 2nd floor. It's a 2-story building.
They did that, Abby, to break up a straight shot. You see where it comes in and out, so every classroom has glass on at least
Right.
2 sides, and then they did in and out on this side, big in and out there, and in and out on the clusters.
Right.
So it's, because originally it was like
where's
strange.
this, where's this going to fit in?
I have a question. You have a locus,
Paul, can we get the site plan?
Yeah.
Can we get the site plan? I think we need to start with that.
The locus plan, he doesn't know
Yeah,
what it says.
I'm going to get the...
Right now, this is being planned, if you go in the front entrance from Surfside Road, you know, you get those
Which school are we going
The
into?
elementary school.
Okay,
You go in the elementary school, and on
I've
the
got a
right,
site
you
plan.
have the upper parking lot
yeah,
with the trees.
yeah.
That's where it's going. It's wrapping there, wrapping around, and wrapping down Bacchus. So it literally faces the front of the other school.
So it's going to go down and some towards the skate.
I'm going to get
Go to the
to...
last
There are
slide,
houses
There's-
between it and Surfside.
would you back that up one, please?
I'm going to the site plan where you said we have a different one at the end here.
Those weren't bad, the ones you just went by. Go back to the other ones. It'll give more
Yes.
information for it.
This one here.
There was one after that one, or before.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm
Excuse
just...
me, would you go to the locus, please?
He's going.
Yes, I am.
Let him answer it, please, Linda. I'm talking to
That's
him,
enough.
please.
He's having trouble with it, that's why.
I want to hear from him. Show me the
Okay,
locus.
let's stay with this image right here. Paul.
Okay.
To orient you to the site plan, here is Surfside Road,
Okay.
at the bottom of the image. This is the existing Nantucket Elementary School. On the right-hand side of the image is Bacchus Lane. The Bacchus Lane fields, the 2 soccer lacrosse fields are located here on the south side of Bacchus Lane. Just off this image is the ice rink. These fields over here are the existing JV baseball and softball fields with the overlapping soccer field, again, fronting right on Surfside. So way over here, off image, is the existing middle school and high school facility. So the site plan development locates the proposed intermediate school in the corner of the site, bounded essentially, effectively, by Bacchus Lane and by Surfside. Point of reference, this is Bartlett Road intersection with Surfside is right at this point. a good way to visualize this is the footprint very much kind of mirrors and mimics some of the faculty parking that is located in this portion of the site plan. And one of the key objectives as we looked at different locations on campus to site and position this building was the program need for these two buildings truly to talk to each other, because candidly there will be some staff that may be shared between the two facilities as well. So adjacencies and relationships and literal and figurative communication between the two schools is an important element. We have, as part of the site plan, developed separate dedicated drop-off areas. So there is a bus drop-off area and pickup area that is separate from a parent drop-off area. Both buses and parents then drop students into a vehicular free sort of pedestrian type plaza area that we will be developing in this area, allowing students clean and safe access to the existing entrance to the what will be the primary school now, and the new entrance to the intermediate school. And I apologize, we should have started with this. We were so focused on some architecture, but we can maybe answer. I can certainly answer any questions on the site plan right now, and then Paul can further discuss some of the architectural elevations to that.
Does anybody have any comments on the site plan?
Okay.
So as Dick spoke, we are going to. I'm going to get it to work. Here we go. So as Dick, here are the two buildings. What we started to look at was where those entrances were. This is the existing entrance to the existing school, and then here's the direction, and this sort of shows that connection between the two. So what we're doing is we've got a number of different options, and we have sort of three views of those options, and we'd like to sort of flip them in and out. It's a little bit like being at the eye doctor, better here kind of thing. But what we're showing you is a view of the entrance.
Before you leave that one, I have
Yep.
a question.
Sure.
What is the square footage on the ground of the existing NES?
The existing NES square footage on the ground.
Because when you say 70,000 on this one, you're talking multiple floors.
2 stories,
so
correct.
what's the footprint square footage?
The footprint is about 45,000.
And the NES looks like it's a good
Double that, I
double
think.
that.
Linda, we'll confirm those square
Yeah.
footages.
Because I think
Absolutely.
those comments are going to be critical,
Right.
so they don't think it's the same size footprint as that one.
Now, and again, these are in scale, so you can see relatively the difference, but we will confirm the actual square footage.
And ours is a 2-story building, so that compacts the footprint a little bit. So this is the view of the entrance, where you can see these are the 4 bars that I was talking about here. And what we've done is, and these are classrooms and different academic spaces. So some of the things we'd like to look at are the windows, the porch, the orientation of the gym. There's a roof over this connector. And again, I'm showing you options. They look like they're finished. They are not finished. And we are really anxious for sort of feedback on those sort of things. So if we look at a few pieces.
Hold on, musical interlude.
Is there any program above the gymnasium?
There is not.
So all that's just clear story space?
Correct. And we need 25 feet clear for basketball. And then above that is basically the roof space.
While you're looking at this, do you want to give them the height, I think, Ray,
Sure.
in that direction?
We are showing this now as a 14-foot floor-to-floor height, so to the eave is about 28 feet. We are in the process of designing. In fact, later today we're having a discussion about sustainability and mechanical systems with our engineer, Kate, and we're looking at what those systems will be, and that will help us to hopefully reduce that height. But we are hoping to get the classrooms to have about 10-foot ceilings. The classrooms are just under 900 square feet each, so the 10-foot ceiling, which I think this room has a 10-foot ceiling, is sort of the right proportion we feel for that type of space.
What's the ridge height of the gym?
The ridge height of the gym is, it's like 48 feet, I believe.
And the rest of the building? Same
It
thing?
is about 45, 44, 45. So we're showing this with 8 and 12 pitch roofs. And what you're seeing on this version here is, if you remember the plan, we had a connector that goes through all the pods, and that's what you're seeing in the back here. This is the courtyard side of the building. This would be that entrance. So one of the things we're looking at is whether the gym is in this orientation or rotated in this orientation, whether it presents as an eave end or as a gable end. In looking at the site plan, and we've just recently got our preliminary site survey done, so we now know more accurately some of the setbacks, and it seems like this presentation fits better, although we think that it might be possible to look at this orientation of the gym this way. So couple things we're looking at here. You can see the difference between the gym orientation, and then if we look at the porch, we're looking at the columns being clad in either shingles or paneled. So they would have more of a trim and panel motif. We're also looking and thinking about the back wall of the porch. One of our concerns is that the wood shingles would not weather at the same rate under the porch as they would in the rest of the building. So we're thinking we'd like to do a paneled system there, which would, in essence, be pilasters that would match the columns and create large panels. We think there's an opportunity there to do perhaps some display of the students' artwork, or even, we've been talking about different ways that we might sort of incorporate some of the energy that the students bring to this project in the underside of that porch.
You're planning on the trim being to match the other one, which is gray?
Correct. It's the oyster gray. And then
Windows are the red.
the windows are the red. What we've chosen, I should talk a little bit about exterior materials. So obviously it's a white cedar shingle, unfinished. The windows, we're showing them in a red, which is the same color as the existing school. We're trying to tie the two together by using the same color. And the trim on that school is an oyster, is one of the standard colors. It's the oyster gray, I believe.
You know, a lot of it's natural too.
It's stained.
It's stained.
As work's been done, there's been
Yeah.
natural cedar put up, so that should get some consistency at the same time.
Well, sorry, what did you say? You said something about something being shingled or something being paneled.
Yes, so we'll show you a close-up in a bit, but the columns here, we're thinking that we'd like to do them as paneled, and then inside the porch paneled as well, so that we have the opportunity to break up the mass under the porch, but leave the larger masses of the building in the white cedar shingles.
How deep is the porch along?
It is about 12 feet deep.
So you could use those back panels for something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Then the other question arises, you can't see from a public way because it's so interior.
Correct.
You may be able to get away with some stuff that's a little out there because it's so interior, you can't see from any roadway.
Right. I mean, we've been thinking about many different things, from doing artwork. It could be a plain panel. Could be artwork. Could be a chalkboard. Could be a lot of different things. Could be glass display cases, where could be a bulletin board. It's protected from the weather. But what we're trying to do is break the scale of this building down to the scale of the student. We have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and we really want to make this building friendly and inviting for them. This is their school. So having the opportunity to sort of personalize things at the entrance, or even just to be under there when it's raining, waiting for the bus, etc., sort of gives them that type of space, and breaks down the mass by allowing us to do this this porch on the front.
So this is the new proposal?
This is the new proposal. Correct. We have a version here. I'll show you where we've pulled the portico.
Because wasn't the library going to be in front of the gym at one point?
Right.
The last thing?
And we moved it back. Whoops. So this is the version with the portico pulled out, and I have some closer views. Let me go to the closer view of that. So here's a view looking at, more squarely looking at the entrance. So here is that entry with the gym presenting as a gable, and here is that entry with the gym presenting on the eave side, still with the porch. Then we also have that same one going to go to it, where we looked at having a large flat roof porch, which we don't think is working, and then looking at no porch, which we also don't think is working, but wanted to at least do due diligence and look at it. And then this is where the portico comes out and is twisted so that it faces the other school a little bit more clearly. And there are some roof lines that are very difficult to justify in this configuration. And if we go back to the other version here, apologize.
One that you prefer?
Right, which is this, which is this version, although we like the paneled columns, but again, these are not complete options. We can mix and match pieces from them.
Does everybody at the table prefer that incarnation to the other three?
I did. What about,
Wait, you mean eve facing versus gable
The
facing?
straight one here?
are you, sorry.
Well,
they're
let's
two different things.
let's start by talking about gym. So the gym, where it presents as a gable or an eave, is there a preference? Gable.
I think
Gable
look. I think
takes
this
up
is
this room.
more welcoming for a child
I
than
agree.
than sideways.
I agree.
Can we
Yeah.
just go over
What?
the height again that's necessary
Yes,
for
I
the
got those other
basketball?
things.
25 feet clear for inside clear height. What we've done is we've brought the gym up to 25 feet, and then we have the roof structure at an 8 and 12 pitch. So it makes it taller. We can lower it a little bit, but with that, we have a little bit of bleacher space, but we'd have to be careful to not lose that 25. This is a, Rob, high school, the regulation size for the gym?
Competition basketball.
It's a high school competition size gym. Even though,
For third through fifth
it's,
graders?
that's just the standard that gets set for it, so that it could be used for community events as well.
For reference, I think we went through this with a hospital discussion the other day. The Boys and Girls Club is well over 45.
That's big.
The current gym is close to 50. The hospital goes from 45 to 50. So some of these other big structures we're looking at, and the Stop and Shop is over 30, are already allowed up. They're obviously going to have to get relief for that, but they're already allowed up over 30. So just to give you some perspective.
We're in the same relatives, thank you for that, we're in the relative size of those buildings.
Well, the current high school, the auditorium and pool,
They're close to 50.
Yeah, they are as well.
I have a comment for you.
Yes.
Looking at this according to the plot plan you just showed me, I'm taking the fact that every bit of this structure is visible from the public way.
No, not necessarily so. Let me go back to the plot plan for you.
Are we considering the access to the school a public way? I would think so. You know, driving up to the school, no? It's a publicly traveled way.
It's a public building, but under
Excuse
the
me,
statute, it's not.
excuse me, I'm not going by a travel way. I'm going by the fact that it's a town in Nantucket land. It's seen from a public way. That is a public way.
Okay.
But I'm just assuming that everything will be visible.
Right, on Bacchus Lane, it'll be visible. Coming in here, it
I'm
will
sorry,
be.
can one at a time please speak? You know I have a hearing problem. All right, thank you.
At
Yes.
this corner here, sir, we have a number of private residences, and there is some pine trees growing behind them. So from that corner, the school is not really visible, but obviously, yes, from Bacchus Lane, it is visible. Coming into the courtyard on the bus and the
Okay, that's fine.
drop-off, you
Thank
can. Yep.
Oh, I think this building is over 30 feet, right? They need to get a variance.
I'm sure it is.
So we had talked about, so it seems the consensus is to have the gable facing and not the eave facing. Is that a fair statement, or is
What is the pitch of the buildings on the right? Pitch on the
8 and 12?
8 and 12, and the pitch on the,
8 and 12.
it just
Yeah.
looks,
So all the pitches match.
it looks.
The pitches are all 8 and 12, except for the porch, which we've done at I think this is a 3 and 12. What we're trying to do is keep that piece a little lower.
Can you
Yes,
get that to a 4? Because that would,
we could absolutely try to get to a 4. Yes.
But I think what the earlier question was, is that portico configuration better than the angled one, better than the one that doesn't have it, that has more glass? Is this something they can go with or keep going with?
Can I ask it?
Right.
Please,
A
yes.
plan design question,
Yep.
excuse me. But physically, for a student to get from the interior of the school to the gym, the only way would be to go through that passage?
Let me pull up the plan. again.
Inside.
I know it's inside, but I'm asking, is that the only way to get to the gym?
Correct. Coming
Through
in
that
these,
throat.
coming in these doors, this becomes, our security barrier for the school happens back in here. This is more public space. There are restrooms in the gym, so coming into this lobby space, you would then turn left to go to the gym or right to go to the school. And the thought is that if the gym were used for after-hours functions when the school was closed, it was still accessible. And there were still restrooms for people who were going to an event in the gym.
So there are two accesses to the gym, outside and interior.
The doors on the on the front of the gym are really emergency exits. They're not meant to be entry doors to it. The real entry to the gym is through this corridor off of the lobby. So that entry here, and then we've located the media center here. North is to the left of the page. So we've oriented the cafeteria and the media center so that we can get a lot of sunlight into those spaces, and then put them sort of so they'd have windows on the outside. We plan on coming back to you with views of other sides of the building, but we wanted to get a general direction today, and a general understanding is, are we pointed in the right direction?
Can you go back to the earlier view, the one right underneath? There
Yep,
you go.
absolutely.
Okay, first of all, these are perspective views as opposed to axonometrics or anything?
These are actual perspective views taken at eye level.
Okay, so my biggest concern, honestly, is I feel like these four gables, one of which you don't see, right?
Right.
There's another one.
Correct,
to
in
the-
this
to
view
the
you
right
don't.
of all this, is reading like a very overscaled army barracks.
Okay.
And I think, certainly I'm one member, but having the gym turned so that the gable is facing now creates 5 very, very large gables that, read like an army barracks or, something like that. Now, is there, I don't know, that's a critique. I haven't thought of what the alternative might be. I just feel like it's very severe. Like all, yeah, all 4 of those gable ends are the same size, the same fenestration, all in the same plane. The gym piece, to me, the gym and its connector, are really the most successful parts because it's at a little bit of an angle, so you don't have that kind of like strict, harsh geometry and the human scale that you introduce with the whole portico piece.
Okay.
That's something that brings these buildings, or brings the complex down to human scale. That's an element that I see on the left.
Right.
I don't see any of on the right at the moment. These tall 2-story unrelenting gables.
One of our challenges is because of the classrooms, the model of classrooms, of a cluster of classrooms around a central space is one that is present in the existing school and very successful. The teachers all love the model, and we had a lot of discussions about that piece. So we're trying to create a building that allows for that configuration. We're also trying to not to break down the scale of this so that we can have gabled roofs, where we came up with this idea of the 4 bars. But in doing so, I'm going to go back to the plan just for a moment here. I'm going to zoom in.
Excuse me, but if
Yes.
you have classrooms on the 2nd floor, how do you have access for children with special needs?
There's an elevator here, and then there's a stair here. So this is the security zone here. So this becomes the school part for the 3rd graders, and then through this stair or the stairs here or the elevator here, they would access the 2nd floor for the 4th and 5th graders.
And are there 7 classrooms in K through 2 building for each of the grades respectively?
Good question.
So,
Yeah,
because
Mike?
you're going from K through 2, and then which is like a twice the size building, into this building, grades 3 through 5, then I just wonder if your classrooms match up.
If I may, right now we have 5 sections of some classes, 6 sections of first grade and second grade, and 7 sections of kindergarten. So we wanted, one of the delicate balances is to build it large enough without building it too large. And so we have put in 7 classrooms, which we anticipate will be the largest, but the general class space in the middle will have the flexibility, should we need to someday, for an 8 classroom. We would hope not to do that because, as Paul shared, the faculty loves to have that shared cluster space where they have children working on a number of different projects.
And did you ask if the current school has about the same type of classrooms in the clusters? There's 6 to 7 classrooms in a cluster in the elementary school now.
Well,
No.
yeah, originally it was designed for 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And we have added 4 classrooms in modulars because of the overcrowding. So 4 of our 5th grade classrooms are outside in modular classrooms.
Okay. So that makes a total of how many classrooms for 5th grade now?
Well, right now they have 5, but that's one of the smaller classes. It used to be that 102, which is in our 5th grade, was a high number. It is now the small number.
Smaller.
Our kindergarten, our first grade has 129, and our kindergarten has 121.
Do you have any idea? My daughter's class had 56.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that.
And one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that every one of these classrooms has windows to the exterior. That's their study after study shows how daylight is so important to students when they're learning. So the reason, again, that we've gone to this fingered approach is that it allows us to get windows to the exterior for all of the classrooms, including the general class. Yes?
I'm wondering if maybe just some more interest to the building may alleviate, like what about adding some bays or adding
Yeah.
something, a shed?
Well,
on
that's,
one
yeah, what I was going to suggest is, clearly, there's the space consideration, the physical space that you have allowable for your building. You have budgetary concerns. I certainly agree with everything that you've said on the interior of the building, including, you know, the natural light and so forth. I think that your challenge on this project would be to humanize those very large gable pieces. And I'm not objecting to the 4 gable modules. I think it's just the way that I see them now. And the reason I asked about whether it was a real perspective is sometimes you get that effect when you do an axonometric. It
Right.
looks like, you know,
Right.
this big sort of overblown thing, but this is a perspective,
Yeah.
so
No.
this is kind of what you'd really see.
And that's why we're presenting it, because we want you to see what you're really going to see.
Yeah,
So
no, I appreciate that.
But
Can I ask,
Ray, do you have any more comments? No? Diane?
what is above the ceiling of the second floor? If first floor is 10-foot high ceiling,
Mhm.
second floor is 10-foot high.
Correct.
And then you have all that space above.
Between,
What is up there? Could one lower one of the bays so it gave a little,
as I said, we're designing the mechanical systems now, and we're hoping that we can lower some of the roofs with that, but we haven't gotten to that stage yet in the design process. We think 2 of the 4 bars will have mechanical equipment up in the attic space. That prevents us from having to build a foundation or a basement, which is very expensive to put that. That being said, we can look at ways of dropping that roof down and seeing how we can maybe compress. But I just want to make sure I understand. Are you suggesting that some of the bars should be lower than the other? Or you'd like to see that?
yeah, I would give it a little more
Variation?
variation
Okay.
on it. And I don't know mechanically whether it's some stuff, and you have this space, your footprint of putting some of the mechanicals outside rather than putting them all up in the roof space?
The equipment itself fits nicely in the attic, we believe. It's really the circulation, the ductwork, and the structure. Again,
Right.
because it's a large building, we're assuming about 2 feet for structure and 2 feet for mechanical systems. With a 10-foot ceiling, that's how we get to our 14-foot floor to floor. But it's early in the process. So what I'm hearing is that you'd like us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to look at how we might lower the building in general.
Right.
I mean, if
Or
that's a
give
fair
little
comment.
Difference in height.
And vary some of the heights.
Yeah, that, I think, would take the Army barracks out of
Okay.
it a little bit.
Okay. We're also looking at the potential for taking the alignment of the faces on the courtyard and not having them be in complete alignment.
I think that would help.
Yeah, that
Pushing a
would
few
help.
forward, and that's something that we'll look at as well. If I could ask a question, in some of these views here, we didn't talk about windows.
Hold on, Dawn has.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, I was going to comment on the windows, actually.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we have some options that we're showing. And if you, I'll just go through them, and then I welcome your comment. We're looking at 12/1s. We're also looking at 1/1s, which don't seem to be as successful, but we wanted to look at it. Then we were looking at breaking the pairs of 3s into 4 bays of 2. And then we started to look at adding these little, I'll call them these little eyebrows on the top of the windows, because we also felt that the facades were a little bit stark. So we were trying to think about, could we put a little piece on it to add some interest? And that could work on whether the windows were 3 or 2 pair, et cetera. But
Now that, I don't know, how does everybody feel about that? It's something we don't see anywhere on the island.
It just looks like a plastic add-on. I
Okay.
don't think it really
Right?
adds.
Yeah.
okay. What about the proportions of 3 versus pairs?
That's where they were in my school.
I think they look more friendly. They have more windows.
I do too.
Okay.
Everybody prefer this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do net out having more glass that way.
You do.
Right. An
Are-
additional pane per, or additional window per class.
Right.
Right.
How about the proportions? I'm assuming that the 12/1 is more desirable than a 1/1?
Absolutely.
Okay. But not a 12/12.
I think that.
I didn't, can you show the 12?
Academy
I don't
Hill-
have a
Anybody
12
who's
to 12
up to Academy
drawing.
Hill,
They
they
have
have
12/12.
12/12.
They
That was
look
the
good in
original
the
school,
academy.
actually.
Yeah.
Gorgeous windows.
Yeah, those are lovely
Huge.
windows.
Again, we wanted to, the reason we looked at a 12/1 is that we're putting the windows a little lower for the students, and we wanted to get as much, sort of clear view for them looking out, but then the aesthetics of having the divided light above.
They should be looking at their books.
Great, that's not happening.
Yeah, I bet you.
It's good that they look outside, too. That helps them to focus on their books.
What is the current elementary school? Don't they have a split window? What do they have over there? They've got a lot of clear glass.
They got it's like an awning or a hopper on the bottom and then fixed up
I think it's
above.
something in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sort of this.
It's
Can
more
you
the-
just go back to that, you've got 2 pair,
Oh, it
Yep.
is?
pair,
Really?
okay, triples.
That takes away some of the wall plane too. on
Do
this.
the other views like more of a face-on
Yeah,
view of
I
I,
do.
I like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, go back to the two better.
Let me show you that in a different
Some of the
view.
barrack,
So here's that, looking at a sort of a face-on view of that piece.
Yeah, see,
So-
that's what you're missing from the other perspective, is the glass piece in the middle as
Right.
well.
And that is something I'd also like to talk about next. But here is the,
Do
with
you
the
have the
eyebrow.
two, that one?
Yes.
I like that.
So this is
Yeah.
the pairs. Do you think the proportion of the windows we're struggling with, are they too wide or should they be more narrow?
No,
That's good.
You think that's a good
the
proportion?
bigger the window, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with those?
Yeah,
In the 12 pane, those are rectangular lights, not square. So
right. We have to be.
yeah.
Well, we would have gone over that.
We heard that one before. Thank you, Linda. but we think it looks better as well. So so
I have a question,
yes.
if I could. On the gym,
Mm-hmm.
there's a second floor of the gym. Will it have any usable access on the second floor?
There isn't a second floor to
There
the
is no
gym.
second floor. All right, well, if you go back to the gable end,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that
Sorry, here it is.
height-wise, you could drop quite a bit of that roof down, because you don't need the full 2 stories of the inside for a basketball court.
We need 25 feet clear. So that's what
Right.
we've set with this, and then we've put the structure above. We haven't designed the structure for the court yet, but we're thinking it might be an open timber or an open steel joist system.
I'm just thinking, if you get that roof down, and the other one is, in my opinion, that, so you don't have, so the one that showed the fascia, to get the other one, yeah,
This one, yes.
When you look in, we'll say from the road, okay, and you're gonna see this massive long thing, and it's up there. I think the gable would be a lot better there to keep it. It may be a look tall, but at least it's not as wide, showing that immense expanse.
We'll certainly look at how we can lower the roofs. Again, I think I've heard that from a number of you, so it's definitely something that we'll bring back.
I have a comment
Yes.
on the attic windows. If those could be something more decorative, they'd look much less like a shoot hole.
Okay.
It's a vent right now.
There'll be
But they need
vents.
to be a little bit more of a rectangular vent instead of a
Or
slit
it could be
vent.
decorative, like a circle, or we have a lot of profiles like that in Nantucket that have half windows, but it could be something decorative.
Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be another rectangle.
Okay.
And something that would fill the space more,
More, yeah.
even if a lot of it was, as Abby says, decorative.
Okay.
You could still have your vent, which is basically right now the size that it needs to be, but then you fill it out so that you're not looking at the sea of shingle up there, you're looking at something.
Ray, did you see the one on the Boys and Girls Club? It's bigger. It fills that gable.
Yeah.
Look at the round.
Right.
Not round necessarily, but the one on the Boys and
I
Girls Club
actually
is
like
bigger
that
and
too.
rectangular,
Right.
and it fills the gable space. So take a look at just a
Okay.
bigger.
That would help a lot.
This
All
little
those
slit isn't
gables.
working.
Okay.
It's
Is
a more
it
substantial vent.
is it worth us looking at the gable ends being more of like a paneled system, or do you think that would not be in keeping with?
Well, I like
You mean
the
like a
shape.
pediment?
You like the shingle?
I do,
Yeah.
and I actually am probably in the minority, but I like the shape.
You like the narrowness?
I do. I think it's very,
I prefer something that's
gives it
square.
a little chicness. But I'm also in the minority because I will go out on a limb and say that I prefer the eve facing.
Oh, okay. We'll pull that one up.
The what?
If
There's
this
always
makes it
one in
smaller,
every
you go
crowd.
to the
Prefer the
I
what?
prefer the eve facing.
This one, as opposed to the gable photo.
Oh, no, I actually agree with you on that one.
Hey.
Yeah. Although, to me, I think the larger challenge, eve or gable, as I said before, I think that the gym part with its portico and everything has more of the positive elements that I'm hoping to see
Yes.
on the rest of it, the 4 other gables.
So perhaps we can talk a little bit about that. So what you'll notice here are the connectors, which in this zone here, these connectors, we're showing them as all glass on the courtyard side. On the other side, we were going to do punched openings. We were going to match the mullion colors, etc. We can do them more as a paneled system. We can do them more as punched openings. At one point, we thought, should they be clabbered that was maybe stained a different color so they help break up the mass. We also looked at it with a flat roof, which you're seeing here, versus a pitched cross gable.
Now,
So
that adds to the massing and the height of the.
Yeah, I prefer
Yeah.
the flat.
So everybody prefer the flats, because
Yeah.
you can't see them
Yeah.
except if you're inside the school courtyard.
Also, changing the vocabulary in between kind of makes those gables read more as separate gables,
Yes.
separate
Right.
enclosed.
I think Don Burns is on
I prefer
5 times the size.
It's
You're
kind of Newell Jacobson sort of.
Because this is a Hugh
Mhm.
Newell Jacobson design type of thing.
Okay,
We talked about that.
Yes,
my
we will.
question
I brought that
is a
up in the
practical
election months ago.
question. What are those glass walkways in practical reality going to look like
Always.
in December? No, with the weather. Doesn't everybody suffer from horrible windows around here? I mean, I know I do. What is it going to be like to keep those looking like that?
Oh, keeping them
Yeah.
Clean?
clean?
Clean. Practically. I said this was a practical
Oh.
question. Well, seriously, because sometimes, for instance, when I look at the natatorium at the high school, that elevation to me looks awful.
think it's because that's a high humidity
I
environment.
know, but it's practically
Yeah.
speaking.
No, no, I
there should have
understand
been
your
another
question.
solution.
Maybe it could be
Not
part of
get
the
the
tension. to go out
To
there.
clean the windows? These windows that you're seeing here are part of the corridor, so it's a large open space that's behind them, not a single room. So there is.
Uh-oh,
Uh,
there's a fire at the Stop and Shop, the new building.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. NFC on scene of fire at under construction Stop and Shop on Sparks Avenue. You know, they've got propane heaters inside to keep going in this weather. That's what we need.
Yeah, flat roof is.
Flat roof.
Do we have a view of what
Hang on a
It's-
second, Diane, and then Dawn.
going to look like from Surfside Road, so we'd see what the gym would look like from Surfside Road?
Not yet, but we will develop that. We will develop
And
that.
that's the furthest piece away from Surfside. It's closer to Bacchus. The backside of this is Bacchus Road.
Bacchus, I'm pulling a blank. Where is Bacchus in relation to First Way?
It ends at First Way. You just keep going down.
Yeah,
Bacchus,
that's what I
It ends
thought.
at First Way, but we don't have the right at the moment. We haven't taken it by town meeting.
Yeah.
We don't have the right unless they agree to it on their own. There are discussions with them to allow us to cut through, but that's a whole different issue. That's a planning issue. But there's about 20 feet at the end of Bacchus where
Bacchus.
we can't get to First Way.
To First
So
Way.
that's a whole other
First-
discussion.
First Way extends off of Surfside, kind of in this direction.
On the other side
of the
Lane
field,
comes
Diane?
up, and then there's a gap.
Right there,
Right
by
up
the,
in
by
there.
the,
On
the end of the
far-
ice rink.
On the far side of the ice rink.
yes. So that's where the gap is.
The gap is, exactly, the gap is way off up in here. Again, this is where the ice rink is located.
Right.
So the gap is beyond the ice rink as we extend back as before First Way begins to loop around.
You see the field there on the left, Diane?
Yeah.
First Way is on the left of the
The
field.
First Way intersects with Surfside right about here
And then it bends
Yeah.
around.
and then bends around.
I was just having trouble putting it together.
Christine?
Um,
Oh, Dawn was going to go
Oh,
next.
go ahead,
Dawn.
Dawn, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to make a few comments on
Do you plan or elevations?
plans.
Plans, okay.
I'm a little bit torn. I like the approach to the gym with the gable forward facing, like the interior entryways. But I'm thinking the impact on Bacchus Lane might be better to have the eave side towards Bacchus.
It's a long
I think we need to show you both views.
Yeah, I'd like to see it from Bacchus Lane. If you do have the option to drop one or two of the four gable masses, the one on Bacchus Lane would be the most important to me to have dropped down.
Lower the height of it. Okay.
Lower the
Yep.
height if you have a choice between which ones you lower. I think that actually shingling those columns on the front entry would be nicer than the panel.
Okay.
And under the porch, I think you could do some pieces to have display cases or bulletin boards or so forth, but I'd like to see it shingled around them.
Okay.
That would be my preference, to keep it more traditional. The big plate glass connector pieces, I would love to see those brought into a little bit more of a big traditional bay window with some kind of division in it.
Okay.
Big glass wall.
So in that
So
connector,
it's
a
a little
big.
more in keeping with the 12/1s.
In general, is a bay type window a
Well,
good
not-
thing
not
or a
bay
bad
that sticks
thing?
out a picture window.
Box. Oh, picture, not a box window or a bay.
No. But I was thinking that a bay somewhere on the first floor might help break up those big walnuts.
Right.
On the gables.
On the gable.
Yes, on the
Right.
gable ends
But
to
not on
do.
the connector pieces.
Okay, but that would be something you'd like to see in terms of popping out, maybe some bay windows in some of the classroom spaces.
Box space.
Box bays, not angled bays.
No, yeah, no.
Box space.
I could see doing that on the classrooms, but I think, I like the simplicity of the connector in glass. I think it's modern, and I think it's.
It's only in that one spot.
Right,
Right
but-
back.
Two spots.
There's
No,
there's two
Is it-
spots.
Does it
Well,
glass out on the other one also?
on
It
the
does.
other
I'll go to
side,
the view
there's
for
one.
you. Sorry while I
Actually,
flip through these.
3 spots, right?
Yeah.
There are
Three
three
connectors
spots.
between 4 gables.
Apologize. Yeah. So
One, two,
There's one
three,
there.
four.
I'm going to go to the flat version for you here. So one here, and then the third one is tucked up high, And then what we thought is on the other side, we would just do 2 punched openings
It'd be a
in the.
shingled wall on the other
Right.
side of the window.
What is that behind the last gable on the right?
This is a stair tower, and I'll tell you that we haven't really resolved the geometry of it yet, and we need to do some more work on it.
Because I did express, and I think Don did too, that that stair tower does face Surfside Road.
Right.
That is what you're going to see, is that projecting piece.
It's pretty wholesome.
So if they could put it interior or put it anywhere else inside,
Mhm.
it would be more effective. Then that is what you see from Surfside Road, because the rest of it is really oblique to Surfside Road. You have to enter the property to see the whole, how long this building is. So that was the biggest issue for me, is that stair tower. And they've got to have one, and they have one in the high school, but it's interior.
Can that be interior?
Or they gotta
We're
work
looking
on
into it.
It does impact some of the classrooms, so they have to figure out how to get it in that hallway at the end and push it in.
That would be nice glass too.
Are these little windows on the gym, are they 9 panels?
They are 12 panels. It's the same as the same as the.
We asked them to do that.
Yeah, we've done the same upper shaft, upper light of the double hungs on the second floor in the same level, and they should be 12s, and we'll make sure they are.
Okay.
I have a question on the windows. Each window, what is the width and height of it?
Those
12 over
windows,
one.
they are just under 9 feet tall and just under 4 feet wide.
Okay, and I have another question on the connectors.
Yeah.
You can't do a close-up, I don't know if you have one.
I can zoom in. Let me go to the other
It
view.
looks like a lot of glass, you know,
It's
for
a
an area, because how much glass do you need to light a short area like that? If it goes from ceiling, floor to ceiling, I think it's too much glass, it's
You
overpenetrated.
don't want that one.
I don't want this view or
You
this.
don't want this rendering, that's got the roof on it.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
There we go. I want to pull up the plans.
So, yeah, it is 9 height.
Yeah, they gotta be 12, they don't have to be top sash, basically.
They are not. Yeah, they should. We're trying to get them. They should be the 9 light. I want to pull the plan. So these are those connectors that we're talking about.
Yes.
So because that's the windows for the general classroom, we're trying to make it as open as possible. In the center, it's the central stair that gets the students up to the fourth and fifth grade. Excuse me. So we're again trying to put a lot of glass in there. So that's why on this side we're doing those as glass. Down in here, our intention is that it would be punched openings in either a shingle or a clapboard. And I don't know how you all feel about mixing a clapboard that might be stained,
You don't think that's too Disney World, all of a sudden have a random ladder?
or should it be all shingle?
Stained clapboard, like the old elementary school, I stained clapboard, and it really wears badly.
Yeah.
I think it's been slowly being switched out to
Yeah.
shingles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to keep the kids happy. I think,
Just keep it shingle.
I think that the columns in the front, again,
Mhm.
I'm going for the panel because I think it's another style other than shingle, and I think it's a little more uplifting than, or it might go back to the barrack-looking thing that Ray was saying, if everything is similar. I like the way they pop. It gives it some life.
They're white here, but they don't have to be white.
Right,
They
they
could,
don't have to be white.
they could be in the oyster
Of course,
gray.
but it's the,
It would be white.
it's the
Right.
surface of it that isn't shingled, it's the
Correct.
panel. and I
All right,
think
what's the
that-
consensus on the panel versus shingle? Christine,
I'm
panel,
not a panel.
Abby, panel, Diane?
I think the panel is fun. I think the school should be fun for
With a
the
little bit
kids.
of top
Yeah.
brand?
And the reality is, if it's shingled, they're going to get totally
They're gonna
banged
get
up.
killed.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I think about the glass in the little connectors. I think that the area of the school is interior-wise, since we spend a great deal of time, as you can see in the winter, gray.
Yes.
As much gray light as they can get, they should have. I think it makes it a nicer place to, to walk through, be in, stand and chat, whatever.
So this view is showing the panels, which we have to do some more design work on. They're not refined yet, but the concept is there. It's showing the gables. This is showing the the eave face, but we can look at that in two ways another time. But we're showing the paired windows, and this is one of the longer roof vents at the top. I know I think we need to come back with some decorative and different types, but I might keep this one in the running if I had my call. But we'll look at some other ones and we can discuss them.
I'd like to go back to the connectors I went
Yes.
through, you know?
Yeah, and that's where I was
Right,
headed.
Okay, in the connectors, myself, they say they need the light. But you go through the school today, it's daytime, right?
Mhm.
Lit up like a Christmas tree, so you have lights on all day long.
Right.
So I'm just saying that visually, it should be, maybe 50% of that should be glass and 50% not. You get plenty of light in during the day.
They
If that
don't
was
need to
half
have
glass.
electricity on if they have all that light.
I'm sorry?
They have natural light. They don't need all the lights on in the connector. If there's all that glass, that natural daylight, they can cut down on
Natural
electricity.
daylight's better for you.
I'm just making a question and comment visually of what we have to do. And
Okay.
it's over fenestrated because of the glass, basically. And that's all I'm saying on that. The other one is up on the gable end. What is up on the gable end?
Right now, we're showing vents. We're still trying to figure out what the mechanical system is and how large those need to be. They're air intake vents.
But I was gonna say, could you make them equidistant, the same as like the windows? The windows are 9 feet high, make them a little wider so they're not square, but they're rectangular. But they're so tall up there, so narrow. I find this, we're gonna get a lot of comments from the public, you know, because other people have asked for vents, and we tell them to put them in basically small, 2 foot by 3 foot, metric sizes that way. So I was just comment on
Okay.
that.
I'm gonna weigh in on the gable versus
Eve.
eave, like this one. The reason why I like the gable forward is because it does narrow the profile when you're right next to all the other ones. On top of the fact that when you go to Bacchus Lane, if we run it the other way, not this way, but the other way, it runs a long way down Bacchus Road.
Well,
So you
that's
have
why
a
I wanted to see
long
that.
Yeah.
wall.
Why
So
would I
I'd
wanna
rather
see
have
that?
it this way than that way. Plus the portico goes across the front of it, cuts the height and all that stuff. So I
Right.
think for Bacchus Lane side at least, this would be the least profile on Bacchus Lane because it'd be the narrowest on Bacchus Lane.
We'll come back with
And it takes up less
both
room.
options with
Yes.
other views for you. 'Cause
Well, plus the other reason, back to the site plan, this would take up less room, you know, going this way.
Right.
Right.
And it would impact the parking, which has been a critical discussion with the planning staff and us all along, is parking. And it might push into the parking area and narrow the drop-off, because that's still under discussion as to how all this flow is gonna work. So this keeps it more compact.
Where are they going to,
They're adding multiple parking space, multiple
Out-
parking lots.
out
One up above the
behind the
soccer
playing
field, one in the front,
To that
The
end,
whole
up
entrance.
there.
that
On
end,
the upper left
I
here,
don't
see
think
all
there's
that
any
new
way you can
parking.
get in here and make this turn to get into this parking lot.
Well, they're gonna have to work that stuff out, because
Mhm.
that's probably gonna be teacher parking.
Yeah.
So they're not going anywhere, or parent drop-off parking, I don't know where you've ended up on that.
Get the, off of the bus circulation access would be envisioned right now some staff parking for the new school. We certainly will confirm
Yeah,
the
that's a
turning
tough one.
radii at that point.
You're gonna have to cut that corner.
Take the second turn in there
Right,
as
you
the
go in,
entrance.
right,
Yeah.
Yes.
that way and
Make
it
that's the
more
other
exit.
way.
Right, make it a one-way
That way
link.
you're not coming out into the circle, you're going the other direction. You're going in at the circle,
Correct.
coming out towards the front.
And
So
to
you're not
that
going all the way
end,
through
we
it.
can reinforce that directional preference by angling some parking and almost,
Right.
again, really, I don't want to say dictating it, but really,
Well, you have an
really
arrow
reinforce
with a
it.
sign,
I
and
have
now
to-
dictate.
I love this. I love the access.
You like
Yeah.
that?
I do.
Yeah, that's
I think
good.
that's really good.
And we're envisioning that as being more some green space and really very, very pedestrian
boxes,
friendly in some
brick,
places.
all that stuff.
And that's next for us to start really looking at.
Hardscape.
I did want to ask a question. I know there may be some other comments, but where we have the media center and the cafeteria, we've developed this porch on the entry side. And we're wondering about developing and looking at a porch on outside the media center and the cafeteria that might also, because we're envisioning there's a connection between the interior and the exterior here, where you could go outside from the cafeteria when it was nicer weather. we're thinking that developing a porch might also help break down the mass of that part of the building.
How does everybody feel about that?
Totally agree.
We'll show it to you, obviously.
Could you bring up that side, please?
I don't have it today. We will bring it back to you, though. We'll develop that.
What about a pergola?
We'll have to look at the angle and make sure that it's not cutting too much of the light off. I agree with you, yes.
So the long and short of it, is everybody comfortable the way this is laying out, given some,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
so you're
Great
okay with the
plan,
location,
great
you're okay
concept.
with the way it's laying out, with some, modifications as they move along?
Yeah.
They just needed to know that this is okay, so they can start making the
No,
modifications?
I think it'll work
Okay.
best of all, without getting down in places where you have got more confined space. I think this would be good.
And I think, I don't know if there's any other comments. We've got this, we talked about this being flat. We'll look at some different ways of
Dressing them up.
Articulating events.
articulating the vents, and then the windows with the paired doubles, should we look at perhaps some of them being box windows, perhaps as a way of adding some relief, and then also moving some of those planes out of alignment?
Yeah, one other thing they could do, I don't know what that will work, is, we've seen second floor walls, and all of a sudden the first floor bangs out at an angle and goes down, so they're not flush faced. But that's gonna add a lot of money to the construction.
Yeah, it would.
So just be careful about asking for box bays and stuff, because that adds a lot to the construction.
Now, I think if they do the double windows, it gives that impression
Yeah, I think
anyway.
it's improved 100%.
Just with the double windows?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think those are good. And see what you can do with the height.
The height.
What's the roof material?
At this point, it's a shingle, just an asphalt shingle.
3-tab or architectural?
You tell me.
Do they ever do like, what is that thing, metal that has a corrugated metal?
Standing seam.
Standing seam metal?
Not on schools.
Is it, no?
We haven't seen a lot of it.
The noise factor on top of it when it rains.
What is the,
I
is
would
the,
think you'd want to do 3-tab. When you
Three
look at
tab?
the boys' club, it's
3-tab. They
I
did,
think it's much better. It's pretty.
Yeah,
well, they did try to come back in with architecturals, because after the first storm, the big windstorm in January, they lost half the shingles off the top of
That's
that
because they
roof.
didn't have, they're supposed to bake on there over
Yeah,
the
they didn't
summer.
get a time to seat up there.
Right.
But they were going to come back in and ask for architecturals while they had blown off, and they had to put them all back on. They
Yeah.
were going to ask for architecturals, but
Three-tab
that's a lot of room for architectural.
As soon as I saw that roof on, I thought, it is so good that that's 3-tab.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think architecturals would have gone too, because they didn't have any heat to
Yeah.
settle in.
It was-
There are also just, I'm sure you know about, it's the new solar shingles.
we are considering that. We need to do more research into it, but it's something we'd like to look into and
That would be
propose.
great.
We have
We
some-
have approved one,
Correct, and that's the one we're looking
and
into.
that's
The
my ex,
Dow.
that's my niece.
Yes, you
But
mentioned
they have
your-
not put them on yet. They're still having some issues putting them on.
Well, we have
I think this
also another,
The
Dow.
Dow is the
Dow.
one
Dow
that makes them.
makes them.
And they're having difficulty with Dow and the salesperson for those shingles, and they have not done it yet.
It's Curtis
So we
Barnes,
don't know how they're gonna work.
Curtis Barnes' son, he came and gave us a whole
Yeah.
half an
But we
hour.
also have the guy, the Dow representative here,
Right.
and that's the one that Renee is dealing with, and Renee and Chester, and they cannot, they're having trouble with the whole thing. So that hasn't happened, because we're all sitting here waiting to see what it looks like.
Right.
And we're sitting here waiting to see how they work, if they're really worth the expense. So we don't really have an example here yet. It's certainly not, and they've got a very large roof,
Mhm.
but we don't know
Right.
what they're gonna look like on this kind of roof.
And it would only be on, if you're looking at this view, you wouldn't see them in this view
They'd be on
because
the south
they'd be on the south
South side,
side.
Yeah.
But I think you have an opportunity here with the 4 gables in a row, where if you did the south side of the 2 center ones,
Mhm.
you could obscure
That's a
the
lot of
view
roof.
pretty well.
A lot of roof.
They blend
Or
in,
one
the samples that we saw, they blended in to that salt and peppery roof very well. You could hardly tell that they
So-
were different.
I know that at the Board of Selectmen meeting, they had already brought up discussions on whether this was going to have any solar type of energy.
We'd like to. It's obviously something that we need to study and something we need to bring to you as we get more information on
Well,
it.
the high school has Mike, the high school up there, because it's a flat roof and we have an inset where all the mechanicals are up there, the high school has solar up there. You don't see them. And the elementary has solar and we don't see them.
No, and they were taken off when the roof was replaced because they caused the roof.
They cause the leaks. So you have to be careful what you do with these things,
Well,
especially on this
the
large.
solar shingles you can take to the dump, just like regular shingle. They don't have to be specially handled as a solar panel.
Well, at least they didn't have to go far from the fire. At least the fire department didn't have to go very far to get there.
I have another comment that,
Yes.
to history, those that remember, in here, when they built the elementary school,
Stop and Shop's on fire.
you mind? When they built the elementary school, a little history, is that they clapboarded it. All right. Within 4 years, they had to do, I think, close to a quarter of it, replaced the nail split, every bit of it. They spent thousands of dollars on that because it was clapboard. Nails just caused splits. So shingle the whole thing away, it lasts longer.
You gotta get going.
I was going to say, thank you for your
Ray has
time.
that thing at 3 o'clock, right?
All right. Are you taking any public comment?
So do I.
Well, very quickly.
Well, it's impact my
Because
application.
Ray has to go.
Anyway, I know. But I think I just encourage the board. The existing schools actually have some really interesting architectural features. Because I think at the time they were built, there was a little bit more latitude in terms of some of the design. And it's challenging to make a big school like this of 70,000 square feet look like a Quaker home, which is what you're sort of trying to do. And I appreciate that challenge. I think some of the moves, like the transparent connectors, of course, and I think Don Burns is right, he loved this school. But the entry in what is actually like the smallest mass in this is kind of interesting because often you try to put the entrance in one of the larger. Hierarchically, it seems a little odd. I think Ray raised some good points. There's some scale issues. If you get kids approaching us or of about this height, even introducing some lower story elements, like even if it's detached, like freestanding pergolas and things like that along the front, I mean, it actually could take some vegetation or what have you, provide some breaks, would bring the scale down.
We're not showing
make it a little bit more inviting.
We're not showing any landscaping in these views, but that is
Yeah,
intended
of course.
to be part of this. But
For
I
the-
agree.
For the board, I think a lot of these buildings, we obviously look at them like this, like we're standing in the parking lot. I think it's really important on these big public buildings to develop perspectives from Surfside Road.
He knows,
The
yeah.
highly, I know, I just think it's worth voting.
I saw the original ones. They've
To
got to
see
fix them
the
based on
impact,
this.
really from what is a major public corridor
Right.
of that.
Absolutely. Yep. No, and that's our
You
intention.
brought that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Because they're going to have all those sides for town meeting on the board. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Give the right track. The right track.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He knows. He's a good man.
Well,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. You got enough to go.
yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, so what we've got here, Ray, I think you're on for training. Can you stay for that one?
Yeah, I told, that's Mark's, right? Yeah, I told him.
Okay, who's on for training?
Linda, Diane, Ray, Abby, and Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is,
John's not on.
oh, John's not on?
No John, no Don.
Who's on, I wrote it down the other day. Who's on Bishop's Rise?
Bishop's Rise is Linda, Don, John, Diane, and Ray.
Okay, thank you.
And what about Gray Woods?
Gray Woods is Linda, John, Diane, Ray, Jason, and the two alternates.
We have enough for Union Street. Okay. Training. Representing the applicant is
Mark Catone and Stephen Code.
Stephen Cohen, representing the neighbor.
Neighbors, Sarah Alter, Luke Thornwell is away and couldn't get here. He did send something.
Mine didn't print it, so I wrote it out longhand. It was having consider brain freeze. The previous concerns, I think we all know what they are.
Do you want me to read them? Did you say, or
Does
are we
anybody
now?
need us to read them? Do you all remember what this is?
I don't think so. Pretty straightforward.
No, my problems are still here.
Shall I introduce it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Again, the approach is still much the same, what we've worked with in terms of the site strategy, which I think is successful. Main mass up at the top of the hill, with secondary mass coming down off the south side of the building, down the hill. It steps down into grade. Our ridge height is at 26 feet. There's a lot of discussion about this sort of lot line to lot line development, but I don't think, unfortunately, this is sort of dictated by both planning and zoning in terms of how these lay out, as well as the MISA approvals. And so we've done a very simple, if you look at the original 1126 submission from last year, we've come really a long way to now introduce a much shorter, in terms of stature, gambrel form. We simplified it. There was a lot of discussion about complexity of design last time, and we just tried to bring this all into sort of the same vocabulary of gambrel form. So you've got your main mass and what might have then been a secondary structure behind it with a very simple low single-story EV connector between the two masses. Not unlike a lot of other structures are in this context. A lot of discussion about the size of this building for Quidnet. This footprint, we're about 2,900 square feet total. There are over 5 homes that we've identified in the village and on Quidnet Road that exceed this in footprint. There are over 3,000 square feet. That information is available on the town website. We pulled it all up. And those are, we're talking about a quarter-mile distance from this site. So it's not atypical. And I know you say Lot 4 was a mistake, but it's still in construction. It was only approved 16 months ago. And it is a precedent, whether it is or not. It's context. And it's something you're drawing from. We think actually we're doing better. That's not actually a very attractive house. We think this will actually be far more attractive. Trim would be a muted tone, maybe a gray with dark sashes. We're not looking for an all-white trim. It's predominantly red roof, cedar roofed, obviously, being the gambrel design. I think it's almost textbooks in terms of it, the way it develops and sits on the property.
Let me read Luke's email. He's out of the country, and someone else got the email. Sarah's office and got it to me, but my computer didn't print it. I'm out of the country, and email access is very difficult. I'll be back March 12th, so we'll have to look at this stuff for Tuesday, by the way. There do not appear to be any significant massing changes, so we find this proposal inappropriate. Please forward to me for the record, so I'll hand this to you. Sarah?
Well, I think in brief, that's correct. The massing really hasn't changed. It continues to be a concern. I think the height being way up on the hill, I'm not really sympathetic to the issues with NHESP and the lot design. This is the vision that the developer had when he put this together. He pushed the MISA approval to where it is so that he could have secondary dwellings down on the road and main houses up on the ridge. And now we're kind of dealing with the repercussions from that. And I'm assuming that this current owner was represented when he bought this property and knew what he was getting into and should have been advised accordingly. So I'm not really sympathetic to those restrictions. The fact that the other house was a mistake, I don't think, every lot's unique. I don't think it creates a precedent just because that one is unattractive and lot line to lot line doesn't mean that this one has to be following in its footsteps, also being lot line to lot line. It's going to be so jam-packed up there along that ridge. It's totally visible coming out of Quidnet from the stop sign down. It's going to be a wall of houses there, and I just think it needs to be kind of rethought and the massing brought down and broken up a little bit more and maybe even pushed down that hill a little bit. And they could always go back to NHESP and have their envelopes redone.
Can I
It's not
add
outside the room.
one more comment?
What? It's gotta be quick.
Well, the comment is, there's this lot line to lot line discussion. What's the magic number? Do you bring the building in 5 feet more on each end, and then from 800 feet back, when they all sit up on the ridge, it's all going to blend together regardless. That 5 feet difference to 10-foot difference really won't make a difference from building to building. You're going to read, unfortunately, a wall of structure up on that ridge. That's the way these lots are subdivided. There's going to be 3 homes up on that hill.
And it's our duty not to have that happen, right?
Well, I actually appreciate these changes. I think that the gambrel is working for you, and one of the issues that I had at the last meeting was the fact that you were sort of hybridizing the gambrel and the gable form on the front. So I think that this, I'm on the north elevation right now, the front, in quotes. I think that the left-hand side has improved quite a bit over the previous submission, both because it's a gambrel form now, and also it appears to be less tall and less lengthy, because you've removed that sort of shed portion on the one side. And I also don't mind, ordinarily I don't like mixing metaphors, or at least mixing roof types, but I think that because we have this break, the single-story break that unites the piece that goes down the hill and the main gambrel form, that allows this projecting piece in the back to be a gable and not compete with the gambrel in the front. The only thing that I would say from my own perspective, Mark, is there seems to be a lot of different windows. You know, you've got a lot of C windows sort of around and B windows, and I think that if you could spend a little bit of time sort of organizing the facade so that windows potentially could line up rather than be skewed from one another, you know, first to second floor, things like that. Obviously, the north elevation is a good example of what I'd like to see because everything lines up good. Those are my comments.
Christine?
I agree with what Ray had to say. I appreciate your changes as well. My only concern, and if you could organize the windows a little bit more so, that would be great. I mean, south elevation, which I guess is the least, everything's visible, but it's not what you're going to immediately see from the street. This faces the backyard.
No, the face is pretty good.
You will see this.
You see the whole.
Yeah, you'll see
the
this.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
It's 800 feet away, but you'll see it.
I think it's overly fenestrated. That's all.
And south is a good example of what I think where the organization should
I wouldn't disagree.
take place.
Abby?
I missed the crosswalk. Is that what they call, what are those called?
Crossbuck rail, yeah.
I missed those on the front.
Mhm.
But I just want to say that I still think it's too large in general. I'd like to see everything pared down still. But I do appreciate the changes. I like going to the gambrel, and I like mixing it. The west elevation is working well for me. I still think it's too long, large, in general. Sorry. On the west elevation, the A window on the second floor that's near the shed dormer, it seems oversized. I mean, that's just a random detail, but I just think in general, I'd like to see it scaled down some.
Diane? On the north elevation, that's the front, right?
The formal
And the front door is that?
We just did very, simple battened door. We just picturing it painted a dark color.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Quidnet, just keeping it simple.
I appreciate the changes that you've made. I just wish you could put it in the dryer and shrink it just a little bit to bring it down. I think, as I guess Christine mentioned, that the south elevation, I think, is over-fenestrated with perhaps those D windows up on the second floor, taking those out. That's an awful lot of windows that I see. I appreciate the one story going down the hill. It's driving along Quidnet and looking up at it. That is, it's sort of at an angle at Quidnet Road and the south elevation. Is it bent a little bit more, or is it actually parallel to Quidnet Road?
Is the main mast, Diane, parallel to Quidnet Road? Is that your question?
Yes.
Pretty close.
It's pretty close, and it's consistent with a lot of the other houses along that ridge are also
Right.
sort of canted. I think they're canted to the view as well, is what's dictating that.
Maybe that. I didn't know that you would not, therefore, a lot of times be looking at it flat on.
Right, it'll be
with
oblique.
it being a little canted, so that's what I thought was better. But I still think that it is got too many windows on that elevation. The east, I think, is going to be difficult to see coming along those houses are going. These houses are going to stop the view from it. I think because of the space between the first house and this house, you're going to see the west. And I agree with what's been said, including shrinking it a little bit.
And there is one more house in between the one that's under construction and this one that's coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's another one in between these
Well,
two?
that's another lot in between is what I'm describing, which I think actually will frankly acts as a screen to the west elevations, and they're going to be,
Yeah.
they're dense lots, that's what they are, they're narrow.
I think on our thought of going from sideline to sideline is that you're going to see it as you look up as strips because you're going to,
Yeah.
because that's the way it's set up.
Yeah.
So we haven't done the pool yet, but I think in your future thought that something that is more rounded than rectangular square is
Organic.
going to tuck in better than such square walks coming down the pool is
Or let's not go to the pool yet.
I understand,
So,
Okay.
anyway, that's it.
thank you.
I agree with Abby. You stuck a hose in it and blew it up with air. I still don't think it's appropriate. The only thing I find appropriate about the design is the gambrel shape. Right, what's the normal pitch on it, the top part of the gambrel? Is it supposed to be 7, not 6?
No, 6 is okay.
Okay. I don't think it's appropriate. It's running lot line to lot line, and if we keep doing this, it's the other ones, as you look at the other ones on Chase going towards whatever the road is, they come off of Swan Road, or how do they get into Chase?
From Squam.
Swan Road. They got space, guys. There's a lot of green, we still got trees, we got nothing. We got wall to wall to wall, and what makes the wall to wall to wall even worse on this is because they've angled this tongue. Now, the one we just approved doesn't have an angled tongue, and it's not this size. That is 90 feet on that side. That's longer than my entire house, and Diane, you know how long my house is, it's 88 feet long. Between the garage.
You're
and
saying
house and
the
back.
one story is 90 feet long?
Between the front elevation and the back, it's 90 feet long. That's not appropriate.
You go from the front door to the chimney?
Front door of the chimney. That's not appropriate in any way, shape, or form.
And lot
Because
4
it's
was at
perfect-
78.
It's perfectly visible. It's too big and too long. Now, if you're going back up on the Chase, whatever they call it now, the main part of the gambrel with some tweaks, I don't agree. The B windows are a no-go. They're all casement windows in these dormers. That is not appropriate. So I don't mind the main basic form of it. The A windows are too big by at least one size. and they shouldn't be that big in any of the ancillary pieces. If you look to the left on the north elevation, those A windows are humongous. And what also concerns me is that the eave height on that addition is actually higher than the eave height at the termination of the gambrel on the main mass. So I'm not happy with that. But I'm not happy with 56 feet plus 4 feet. That's 60 feet along Chase Lane. Nobody does that up there. So I'm not in favor of that. If you want to do a gambrel piece, then this piece hanging off the side needs to be a lot smaller. And that eave needs to change so there's not as much space, and the A windows need to get smaller, and the B windows need not to be like that. So if you go over to the west elevation, that is 90 feet. The chimney faces Quidnet Road. It's inappropriate outside like that. It's no attention to that L. It shouldn't be angled, and the thing shouldn't be that long. This connector piece is a problem.
Big chimney, too.
Yeah, and the connector piece is what's causing a lot of that problem. On top of the fact I'm concerned that this is relatively the same shape as the one we just approved. Are they all gonna come in here with main mass up on Chase and this tongue hanging out over the edge?
Do you
I don't
mean the
think
one?
that's appropriate.
Sorry, do you mean the one that they're building
Yeah,
now?
has a tongue just exactly
Oh,
like this,
like this, yeah.
but shorter.
Here it is.
So I don't think that's appropriate to have two with the same thing going on. They should find another way to add on to this thing going towards Quidnet that is a little bit more appropriate. Too many C windows all over the place. Those C windows are accent gable windows. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you got everything gang, and you've got B windows that are gang. So and I don't agree, at least at 90 feet, that the gable is working for me at all. I've seen structures, and as Ray knows, I've seen structures that has a blend, but not like that. When you go over the south elevation is going to be entirely visible for one particular reason. All that stuff in that tongue is going to be completely visible from Quidnet Road because it's angled away. So it's actually open to Quidnet Road. So that's another reason why I don't think it's appropriate. They've got the outdoor fireplace, the pergola oversized and not appropriately designed, facing the road. That to me is huge. It is over fenestrated. I don't know what the height on these walls is.
I don't mind the
Again,
A
look at
windows, so do you,
why
why,
too big by one size? Because he's trying to make it, you know, sort of more subdued. These are way too big.
How many inches is the size for you?
He knows.
I think
Probably 1 or 2 inches each direction. But let me finish. The decks are too big. Too many French doors. Too much ganging going on that side. It's almost completely glass. The east elevation is visible because, again, that section in the middle is exposed to Quidnet Road because it's angled away from Quidnet Road. And those are 8-foot doors, not appropriate. Too much glass again, too much ganging, too many C windows. The A windows look huge when you look at the little piece that they're in on the right. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know if there's one around the corner or something like that. So the only thing I think is working for me is the gambrel.
I think that they've successfully brought it down
Yeah.
so that
At 26 feet, probably it can go there.
right.
But I'm
But
having
it
trouble
needs
with
to
that.
shrink up. And particularly that connector piece,
Yeah.
which is 27 feet long.
Yeah. So I think there were a lot of good comments about the fenestration and the massing that we can work with. I do have one question. Abby had raised the crossbucks.
Oh,
Is
too
that
many decks. There should
Too
be
many-
just the
right.
one deck in the middle, not the one on the right. in the
Okay.
back.
would other people rather see the crossbucks come back or
I
not?
love this kind of
Now, do they work on a gambrel?
Yeah.
Because I don't care if they have it or they don't have it. I don't have it.
Right.
No, I think they're charming.
I think we can work with those comments.
Somebody make a motion to move to revisions. So moved.
Thank you.
In favor? Now, as far as the pool, you guys are probably not privy to what we did to the other one.
I was here.
Okay,
It's
that's
like
what happened.
just a spa.
They went to a little dipping pool way up here, embedded in the deck that we did approve. It isn't going out there. We told everybody, we told the original developers, Roger and all those guys, no. They had to find a way to get it into the body, into where the body of the house is. That's why he went to the dipping pool.
We'll figure it out.
Are we holding the other?
So we're holding
Yeah.
those two.
Yes, we are.
So that
Yeah.
was a.
Thanks for hanging
Who made
around.
that motion?
Thank you, Ray.
For revisions?
I can.
Abby made a motion to hold the house for revisions, all in favor?
Aye.
And then Abby made a motion to hold the garage and the pool patio fence, Christine did. Pool patio fence to track. All those in favor?
Aye.
Cool.
So I'm gonna go.
Okay. Let the record reflect
Thanks again,
that, Ray, like, if we run into trouble, Ray can always listen to the tape to read back in.
Oh, yeah.
Because it won't come back until you get back.
No, and I'm gone next week.
What day are you gone?
What day do I leave?
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon.
So are you in the office in the morning? So I gotta get you to sign the agreement. I gotta get that filed.
Yeah, I'll be
Did you mean,
in the office until 2 o'clock.
You mean Abby have to sign it. And I don't wanna hold on to it while you're gone. And what day are you coming back?
The weekend after this one coming up.
You're only gonna miss one meeting.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna miss one
That's,
meeting. Or two if there's a Thursday meeting.
are you gonna have access to your email when you're gone?
Okay, so you're an alternate.
No.
Because I've got all the stage and past stuff. So I just wanted you to take, I may ship that to
Either
you tonight.
text
I'll
me.
ship it to you tonight. She's out.
Okay. Or Lisa will have her computer. You can
Hey,
Bye,
that's a
everybody.
good idea.
Okay,
Have
63 Hammock Pond Road, we have Linda, John, Diane, and the alternates.
All right, so it's Linda, John, Diane, Abby,
Johnny.
Christine. Yep. Okay.
We're the wrong band.
The group.
Mark Catone representing the applicant. We're not there yet. Just the main house. Yeah. Basically, we've gone to a Cape approach. Well, good question. 26 feet. And actually, we submitted a revision that we brought with us because the dormers looked a little awkward on this, and they actually probably should be mulled in a little closer to each other. Yes.
Okay. This is what we'd rather have, this is better. But we'd also agree to bring the walls in a little bit so there's less wall around them.
Where-
That's the front elevation, yeah.
Southeast.
We did this tweak where I think that would be a bit more appropriate.
So the part that faces where are we? What faces,
Sorry.
northwest faces, whatever that is, front.
Backside.
So wait a second, the front door is still not facing Hammock Pond?
No, it is now.
It is.
It is now.
Yeah, so the northwest is the part that faces, or northeast faces, right.
Got it.
Now you got me turned on. Hold on.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Northeast faces Red Swan.
That's right.
I got it.
Northeast and northwest.
Yeah,
front.
yeah, it's, yeah.
Northeast,
The front door is facing Humboldt Pond.
northwest. Northwest. What is this northern west?
North faces Burnt Swamp, right?
Could.
And south faces Hammock Pond.
Exactly.
Usually they're just all, the headers are one, yeah.
So it's changed considerably.
And the southwest faces going, if you're coming from the pond area, that's what you see, right? Southwest.
Yeah, southwest, if you're coming into, towards town, yeah. You see the
There's no rhyme
south.
or reason where these windows are spaced on the southwest, and you see that coming back from the pond.
Right.
I don't know if there's any way to fix that. Like take the center window and put it over the right-hand beam window. Maybe?
Yeah, we might be able to tweak that.
Does that bother anybody, or is it just me looking at it?
Can you?
Which,
No, it would be better if it came down.
somebody lined up with something.
Okay.
So the middle
Middle,
A window
A,
on the southwest would line up with the right-hand B window?
yes.
Okay.
And how about in the northeast? The northeast.
The left ones are lined up, is there a reason why that one can't get lined up?
I imagine, yeah, we could line that up.
Okay, so northeast, Terry, the bottom right-hand A window would line up under the top right-hand B window? Oh, where'd that go?
Cape's getting it.
The tape next to the restaurant.
Oh, I'll
There
write
she
it
is.
down.
Right here.
Oh, there she is. We'll repeat it.
Okay, are we going to go around?
Yeah, John's already folded up and sent it back.
My comment is with the dormer changes, I think makes the whole structure appropriate for the neighborhood.
Yeah. I think everybody's there, John. All right, anybody else have anything to add?
How tall is the building? You said 26?
26 feet.
Are you going to, I know it's outside of the design of the house, but are you going to clear that
Let
lot?
the record reflect that John is leaving at,
We haven't illustrated it as being cleared? No.
John is no longer on this?
I think the vegetation shown here is the indication on the site plan as to how they hope to.
You have to be careful under the planning that you don't block the visibility coming out of Burn Swamp. There has to be
Right, this
very low
corner.
vegetation on the
Yeah.
corner.
But I don't think it's a clear cut. It would be kind of crazy to do that on that lot because it would just completely expose that house.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because
And they don't want to see what's behind it.
No.
the houses along Hummock Pond Road in that area are usually set back further.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's gonna be back probably
Eddie
as far as
Metcalf's
Metcalf's.
Yeah.
is the only house that, so this is going to be as far back as Eddie?
At least, yeah.
Okay.
By looking at the aerial.
That was a concern that I had, and I
It's
think
good.
the
It's 25 feet,
And then some.
and then some,
Yeah.
because there's another probably 8 feet of road that's not cut.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I like the new,
Dormer adjustment.
Dormers.
Okay.
So the motion would be, is anybody else have anything else?
So
Linda, did you say these are gonna be?
In 6 inches each side.
we'll
Okay.
reduce, yeah.
Because I think they look top heavy.
Yeah.
The front door looks a little stingy to me, if you could elaborate, in terms of, like the steps going up.
Just beef up the trim.
Yeah, and make this, maybe a little, I don't know, what, railing?
Railing.
Yeah, like a railing or,
Okay.
or
He
something.
doesn't technically need a railing.
No, it just looks very.
Maybe a wider stoop and maybe just some side
Yeah,
rails
something
there.
more
Give it a little more presence.
welcoming.
Sure.
And rectangular stoop then, right?
Yeah.
And railing,
Mhm.
standard railings. All right, so the motion would be, guys, would be to approve the southeast elevation per Exhibit A, right, with the, and I've marked it with the cheek walls brought in 6 inches each side. The trim on the front door added to, and the front stoop being a rectangular stoop with railing.
Correct.
Does that work?
Yes.
And then on the southwest side,
Maybe having a trim, sorry.
yeah, I did that already.
Mhm.
And the southwest side would take the center A window and move it to the right so it aligns with a B window above it. You got that, Terry?
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay.
And the northeast side, the right-hand A window would move to the right to line up with the B window above it. Is that somebody's motion?
most,
That's Diane's motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You got one?
I'll take it.
You got something to sign?
Yeah, it went over there.
I got it. I'll fix it. Just sign it. Christine, did you get it already?
No.
Oh, okay.
Is this Exhibit A?
No, I've got it.
Oh,
Those are
you're just trying to.
Because those aren't right, so.
Okay, so the next is 10 Bishop Drive, the new dwelling, and we have Linda, Dawn, and Diane.
Is that it?
Yeah, well, because Dawn's gone. And
I
Ray.
thought you had, Ray's gone?
Ray was on it.
Yeah.
John's
Do you
gone. Okay,
want-
so 3 of us.
You know, it was very close. It was like
Yeah.
a window adjustment and pergola details.
Yeah.
So we did exactly as you asked. So
So,
I'm willing to take the chance.
hold on for that way, and we'll go.
Dawn. You want? Only 3 of us.
I need you for the, well, it's new, but the demo is old, and
Here's Exhibit A.
The real,
Real Exhibit A.
Mark Catone representing the applicant, APC. There was concern that the porch looked a little insubstantial on the east elevation. We introduced a full farmer's porch, which was something that had been discussed at the table when we met last.
So why rafter tails? You don't have rafter tails on the
We don't. It's only on the porch. If there's a concern about that, we could nab it match. Okay. All the A windows were too large, so we reduced them both in height and width proportionally all around the structure. And
Did you take this house from Quinn?
we didn't take the house from Quinn. It comes from the same studio. And we, I guess we only had these two. And then added details to the pergola, which had been a bit stripped down previously. The only thing we didn't capture, and it might have been, I don't know if it was even an oversight or just a question. Diane, you had a concern about that chimney, and we're willing to address that. I think there was a question about the corbelling or something.
Yeah,
Maybe I just need to have you point it out.
no, I think this chimney,
Her comment was a little short and fat.
you fixed the corbelling.
Yeah, okay, I think so. I just wasn't
You took
sure.
it above.
Yeah.
This one, remember, it was.
Low or something, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we
it
did
was-
pick it up. That's what it was.
And you picked it up,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Okay.
Mark,
Yes.
you've got these windows, whereas you have to put that on the, we don't know what that is.
Which one are you looking at? Oh, in the exterior area
Is it
way.
the basement or is it the AC unit?
It is, no, it's a basement walk down.
You don't have a basement.
I'm sorry, it's missing on your first floor plan, yeah, I
We don't
agree.
have a basement plan,
Right.
and it's not on the first floor plan.
Yeah, it should be. It
Right.
should be.
And on your elevation, you need to do,
Stairs.
you know, what
And then
direction.
we can tell exactly what it is.
You know, it was on here. Okay.
What are these D windows?
On which elevation are we?
They don't make any sense. Compared to the floor trees, they make no sense. You know, they're
Oh, these
all
6
on-
lights up in the, no, they'd be fixed. They're all fixed up there.
Is that clear story?
Yeah.
The 6 lights don't work with these 202s.
What would you prefer to see?
And you'd be tons of B windows. They're not working either. So,
That wasn't raised as a concern last time, but,
I feel like she did mention that.
oh, really?
But I prefer the 6 lights to any of the alternatives. I'd love to see the 202s changed to match the 6 lights.
Oh, interesting, really?
Yeah.
6 over 1s.
6 over 1s?
Yeah.
Because it's a shingle, sort of. because you
Right,
don't have any corners.
correct.
I would go 6 over 1s
That'd be fine.
on the whole project.
Mhm.
I don't have any other concerns.
Okay.
Diane?
No, I don't either. If you do the 6 of 1.
6 over 1?
So, yeah, it's just
It's always, it's overused.
Which isn't appropriate.
I'm having a problem with the B windows and too many C windows, but I'm more concerned about the B windows. They're short and squat.
I think they'll look better when they're 6 over 1s.
Mhm.
Yeah, but they're still not the right proportion.
Won't they follow the?
They're gonna be very horizontal. The panes, and when you go 6 over, they're gonna be horizontal panes. They're gonna
Well, I
be-
would not, I hate horizontal paint. They're not, you will not see a horizontal paint on a house. We
The B
could, we
windows
could
are
lengthen it
appropriate.
some, yeah, just change the proportions, right, so that the light size have to be vertical.
They need to do the same, sort of a smaller version of the A,
Mhm.
and not.
Mhm.
So they would have to get a little bit longer.
That would be fine.
All right, so Dawn has made a motion to approve through staff. How far out is that deck?
Which one?
Because on the floor plan, it looks like it's out 10 feet, the second floor. I can't get a look at it because it's hidden.
I mean, we have massive decks up on the house right behind this,
And that's
and
not fair. It's on top of something that is sort of not a flat roof, but it is. Where's the depth?
oh, scale it.
Is this 1/8?
It's quarter. As required. 8.5 feet.
Yeah, you could keep it back. There's no top rail on it, except for cap.
No, it's, no.
So Dawn's motion would be to approve through staff.
With all the windows changed to 6 over 1s, with the eaves to proportionally be
Should-
vertical.
Yeah.
And longer,
And
probably
the,
8 longer.
the French doors should all change to 15 light.
Could you repeat about the B windows?
All right, the B windows, the B windows will get to be 6/1s, and they'll be longer, so the panes are vertical. That's the only other thing, right?
Okay.
Oh, and the French doors go to
15
15
light.
light. And you're okay with that chimney, right, Dan?
Yeah, that, he changed.
Don't
Okay.
keep doing these, Michael, we're not gonna approve them.
I know, we
Ever.
changed them.
And you keep doing it. You're the only one who does it.
That's great.
Don't keep
All
doing
right.
that.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye.
The same board for the garage.
Mhm. Mark Catone representing the applicant. I think in light of the previous discussion, obviously, 15 light door? Yep. I would suggest these A windows on this proposal. This garage would obviously be a 6/1 to match the main house. I think the only concern was this was the mass off the back of this was the roof line. We just changed it to a gable. Yeah, and if you look at the site plan, this is at the furthest back portion of their lot. You'll never see it.
What's this?
That's a walk down to under their garage for storage.
You gotta put it in, it doesn't look big enough. Is it going that way?
It goes down. Yeah, no, it
Oh, I
fits.
see it, it goes around the corner.
Right.
All right, you gotta put that stuff in.
Oh, you like to see the ghosting underneath. That's fine.
Okay, so motion to
Hold on.
approve with the E as
That has to be
mentioned.
fixed, because there aren't any 8 lights anywhere, they're all 6 lights.
I'm gonna do 6 to match the main house.
Yes, it's gonna match the main
I
house.
mean, I don't
But you
mind
can
an
see
eight, but
right-
as long as it's proportional.
But you can see right down the driveway,
What's
because it doesn't match all the 6 lights that we're making them put in on the house.
it fills the dormer.
The door.
I just agree with you. I don't agree about that. I mean,
I don't mind the 8
that
lights.
much either way, but I just really don't agree. So I'm gonna make a
Fixed.
motion to
Fixed.
approve with the 8 lights staying and the A windows changed to 6/1.
Yeah.
You want the French doors changed to 15 light?
There's no French door
There's
in
no
there.
French
Not on
Okay.
this.
So it's just windows and a dormer.
Yep.
So Dawn's made a motion to approve with the A windows becoming
6/1.
6/1s. Obviously, colors. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Hold on. Oh, that's it for this one, right?
That's it for me anyway. Thanks, guys.
All righty, Union Street, come on up.
So if you're gonna hear the demo, the alternates have to sit.
There is Dawn on the demo, because I remember when you and I were talking about it yesterday, she wasn't.
I don't.
Because it comes from way back in the fall.
From the last that I could track down, it looks like September 16th
That's probably right.
was the
It
last
was forever
time.
ago.
And it was Linda, John, Ray, Jason, and Christine, and then Abby was an alternate, so.
So
we
it is
have-
only myself, Christine, and Abby.
It was my birthday.
Yes, the fact that you stayed for it. Come back here, you're on it. Well, you can't get out yet.
So that's for the demo, and the new building is a new application. Nobody has signed, so.
So the demo, and the record shows that Diane has recused from that.
Correct.
Actually, Diane's recused from both of them.
Correct.
You want to go home, Diane?
Well, I was thinking that, but I want to see the drawing of the house because I have not.
Okay, so do you want
can
me to
see it
pass
in
the
what-
new?
You can hand Diane the new one, so she can look at it over there, and then we'll talk about the demo.
Yeah, the demo's in garage, so you asked me to hold it to see the plan for the house, so I don't know if it makes sense to flip-flop the order.
Could we have your name for the record?
Sorry, Terry Sanford.
You want the demo application out?
Yeah, I might as well check that out. Okay, back it goes. was what the replacement building was gonna be? Is that why we continued this thing?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Can we get a couple of those plans from Diane?
What do you mean? I have them all.
Are these the new ones?
So I'll take
Yes.
those back here, and that's very existing, I'll take that back.
I'm keeping this for a second because we haven't approved it.
You want, okay, well,
I just need to say.
hold on, I want it, there's something else I need to add to that.
They're the ones after you and I discussed, yeah. You can drop them off, so.
Ethan brought this in to add the window schedule, he had the wrong one, so that goes to the new building.
Trust me. I went through it and was like,
Dawn is on this one, Terry? I'm watching, I'm going this way.
But Dawn is not on the.
Not on the demo,
Not
but
on
she
the
is
demo.
on this one. Okay. So the one,
he did. He shrunk it. We shrunk it to a third the length of the roof.
So,
2/3.
Excuse me?
Sorry, 2/3.
Point of clarification, the demo is for the garage, correct?
yes, this is replacing it.
And this would replace the garage.
Because we wanted to see what was gonna go there.
Right.
okay, so,
Can I speak as an abutter?
Not yet.
can I just read the HVAC concerns before you?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it, just one member, so just public comment basically. Just on the east elevation, the garage doors are oversized windows. And the widow's walk,
Yeah.
still another opinion. I don't know what this means. Still another.
You don't have the right drawings.
What do you need on the right drawings?
When did you bring the new ones in?
Ethan did it yesterday.
Did he not bring them in?
No, Ethan brought me, and,
These are the wrong drawings.
okay, so all Ethan gave me were those 4 sheets of the window changes. That's all he gave me. I took them in.
I told you.
Yep.
You gotta pay attention to him. Because he's screwing this stuff up.
Yeah. Well, let's.
Well, this is not what you're supposed to be looking at, but it's close.
Yeah.
And we can tell you what the changes are.
Exactly. You want to see that?
Yeah. So the changes are,
It's almost exactly the same. There's some tweaks to the
okay,
windows.
here are
which
the changes.
I'll give you a
The
copy.
roof walk was still not changed, and we asked him to change it, so it was appropriately scaled. It's supposed to be small. We asked him to get rid of this. It was oversized compared to the ones on both sides. Yeah, it's new, but we were trying to figure it out. You know, he asked me about it beforehand, I was in the office, and he said, here, look at this.
He never.
Also, he never fixed it, but what he also was supposed to do, and he did on this is the smaller version of what he was supposed to put in. When you go to the east elevation, those atypical 4/4s, we're going to 9/9s to match the ones on the front left.
Okay, the ceiling.
Yeah, the C windows.
They're after.
What else has changed? Over on the north elevation, because there wasn't anything to make it, it was all too random. What they ended up doing is taking out the little M window, putting in another L window, lining it up in between, spreading those two out, and putting in a third one where that vent is.
And then we line that window up too, right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, they lined the windows in the addition. In the
Yeah.
addition, they lined up the windows in the addition.
elevation, you'll see it.
Yeah, the connector is all lined up now.
Yeah.
There
There's a lot
wasn't-
more symmetry.
I don't believe there was anything on the north, the south, except that I asked you to change that.
Yeah, we changed that.
They changed the side door, so it had 12 lights?
I think it's 12. It's on there.
Something.
So but the only public comment from the historical.
Had to do with the garage doors and the back
Garage
doors, which are not atypical for carriage doors.
Well, I'm just wondering if you had made any changes to those as well.
No,
No,
but open to.
and he didn't fix this.
It's fixed on mine.
So,
Okay, and so you know, back on the east elevation again, the AC units are elevated and the fence is raised, I believe. I don't, where's the
Yeah,
little one?
it's set so it's all
It's
a
set so
flat
it's
line.
all
So it's all
Flat
one
line.
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
It's the outdoor shower and the
floodplain, which is
ACs.
lovely in your backyard, whereas AC units have to come up out of the ground.
So I'm just having difficulty with
Knowing
which building
Hold on,
it is.
we will.
That we're,
You know that
because
funeral
I thought
home?
when you look at the house now, there's this house on the right, and then
Yeah.
in the back, there's this, what I thought was the garage.
It's, well, if you're standing on
There's
Union
multiple
Street,
garages.
the funeral home is on the corner.
Right, correct.
The one next to it is a separate lot
Okay,
with a garage on it. That's where this is going.
okay.
So it
Yeah.
fills in between the two other houses.
It's got like a hip roof garage,
I have
the
that
double
one
door.
back. And we do have an abutter, Diane, that's why Diane is recused, because she owns the house across the street, and little Diane Holgate is speaking as Big Diane's daughter.
Okay. I have, the widow's walk is too big.
Yeah, it should be scaled back.
My real question is how are you getting to the garage?
We've
How
set
you-
up an easement that runs along this lot line.
Okay, this is building is,
This will come down
and then there are two more houses going in the back,
in the two
right?
corners,
Well,
yeah.
we haven't gotten there yet, at all.
But this is,
They're separate lots now, under the
but
subdivision control law.
it's going to impact those houses, this house is going to impact this little tiny side street that has two houses on it, three houses at the most. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to have this major driveway and all these houses.
Where's your driveway for this?
It's coming
It
off of
comes off the
Fayette
rear.
Street behind the funeral home.
So the idea was to take a shared driveway and take the parking for all three of these houses and put them behind.
Where the parking is now.
So the parking would be here, here,
We don't have
and then
that.
you'll end up with the parking over here, like that, behind the house, which will sit towards the front of the street, presuming that it's approved.
It just,
And access is something we don't have control of.
who does?
What are you saying, that it's too big?
It's too big. It's big. It's a little, Fayette Street's a little tiny side street.
compared to the
There
little
are
houses
four houses that front Fayette Street. They're all small houses. Well, except the one right behind my mother's, but it's a little tiny side street, and this is doubling the access of people off of it.
That, we cannot, that's not within our purview. We have to take this building, not the access is not within our purview. We have to take the front of the building off of Union Street.
Is that
And a lot of them don't have parking, we don't have.
But
Is that part of landscaping? I mean, when they do a road?
I mean, the driveway-
The hardscape.
The driveway has, nothing can be done about the driveway and how it's going to impact the rest of the house across the street.
No. No, we can't, you do use and we can't do access. We have to approve the surfacing, they're gonna have to have an apron
Yep.
at this point.
But not the size. Right, okay, so we could say something about material,
When it comes in.
right, so it wouldn't be like
But
a
right
hard.
now,
They're
you're
doing
approving
it
a
by
house,
easement,
you're approving a house
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
The
garage
easements
that
have been
shows
placed.
no access to the garage. There's no access to this garage
Is
shown
that actually
on the plan.
Not a garage.
That's what it should.
It's storage.
It's storage.
Okay, the
But again.
the footprint, excuse me, the floor plan shows a garage. It shows a car, it says garage. It's a garage. If it's labeled garage, isn't it a garage? With a
Okay.
drawing of a
We
car.
can't get into use. It's
But-
inside the building.
But you're approving a house with a garage that has absolutely no access at this time to the garage.
We can't
for the driveway.
eventually, but the driveway has to do with this building.
Or what we would say is you have to come back with a hardscape plan.
So, yeah, the
We
hardscape plan
do
is
see
separate.
garages sometimes that, and in this case, at the moment, we would assume that it's on until you come in with a
Yeah.
hardscape
So in
plan.
other
We do
words-
see that.
We see that all the time.
And so the access to this supposed garage is going to come in from Fayette Street, not from Union Street. So there's no easement here. The
Yep.
easement is in the rear.
The easement's coming in
Yeah,
here.
the
and it's
easement is on the
gonna be
rear lot.
Whatever happens over here on the other lot, which is not before us at the moment. The only
Exactly.
jurisdiction we have is over this structure on this lot.
So going back to this structure, when I look at
The planning board is all in
the
on.
porch, the
Mhm.
way you depicted the porch, is there like a, what's the setback on Union Street?
zero.
It's 0 on the front and 5 on the side.
So what's with this porch here? Does it look like you can even get up the stairs the way you have it?
Yeah, look at the site plan.
Yeah, yeah.
It's behind the lot line.
Yeah.
This is the public sidewalk right in front of it.
Right, but look at the width of it. I assume you're going up the sideways, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no, they have to have a certain width by
Does
code.
it have to have a certain width?
Yeah. It just makes it, it's 3.5.
Okay.
Actually, just north of 3.5.
Just wanted to be sure.
Because if it doesn't meet code,
Right, exactly.
There's no chimney?
And the
No
height of the
chimney.
house is
you should have off to the one next to it too.
It's the,
Yeah, there's no chimney on the one next to it either. I don't know what happened to that.
I don't know. We have a chimney. And the funeral home has a chimney.
I would say that just, maybe it's out of our jurisdiction, but I would say, could you be sensitive to
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, for just general discussion, for what it's worth, what we're trying to do is essentially pull all the cars off the street and out of the
So
way.
This, where you have the driveway going in, is the current location of the handicap parking spot.
No,
that
the
my mother
handicap
uses.
spot is about
Oh, right
here.
behind it.
Yeah, it's about
Oh, I
15
thought
feet
this was with
difference.
that
No,
the
because
wing
this
taken
building
off.
actually comes all the way back to,
Yeah.
it actually goes over the edge right now.
Right, and my mother's
It's
handicap
just on
parking
the edge of
space
that.
is at the edge of the existing
And
building, which is not, this is,
This comes all the way to like here.
right,
with all
this
the
is where the
stuff.
current
And the-
funeral home is, and
Yeah.
her handicap parking spot is right here at the end of
I
that
don't think
building.
it, does it come past it?
Yes,
Okay.
I
Well, you
park
guys
there
will
And then we have to
every
slide
day.
forward 6 feet.
You're gonna have
I
to work
mean,
that out someplace else, because you can
Yeah.
move forward 2 feet, or you
No.
can move the driveway 2 feet, or
Well, the handicap parking space is painted on the street in that spot.
You
It's
can
not up to
repaint
me to move my handicap parking space.
it's up to the town to move the space.
Well-
And the traffic safety will move it wherever you think you need it.
That's
Already
where I
been
need
through
it,
that.
it's right across from her gate.
But it's, again, it's beyond, totally outside our jurisdiction.
I mean, I'm definitely open to
But
making
you
that
need to work
as
with that space.
minimal impact as possible for you guys. And again, when we looked at how parking was going to end up working with this whole site, the idea of the shared driveway, putting the cars behind all the buildings, seemed like the minimal impact to keeping the street front pedestrian, pretty, and not right now. It's like a disaster in there. I mean, there are cars parked all along everywhere.
Yeah,
So
well,
we were trying
everybody
to
who's
really
living in the
clean
funeral
that
home
up.
parks here, and my nephews park
Okay,
here.
all right,
and I
this is
park.
beyond our
So-
jurisdiction. I don't want to get too far out of where we can actually talk about it. All right,
If
there is
you
an
wanna
issue
talk about that outside
with the
here,
roof walk.
I'm happy to sit down and see if we can
Okay, well,
discuss.
Make sure you guys have phone. The roof walk is too big compared to the roof walks that are on similar structures on that street. But I don't know if you look at the back,
I
how
have,
they're gonna get around that dormer.
It's got to straddle that down.
yeah, that was, exactly. So the way it is on this small plan, it's, I guess, 2/3 of the roof length, which I had Ethan adjust based on the discussion Linda and I have. And
Too wide on top of it.
anyways, so that's where it stands on what should be in front of you. And I have some current pictures from Union Street with houses with roof walks if anybody wants to look at them. But yeah, I mean, they're sort of varying sizes. There's some that,
It's too big.
this one was really small. I thought that looks awkward.
it's too big. It's going to look huge on that
How much,
house.
how do you, well, here's one of the big issues, is that it's too wide. It's 9 feet wide.
9 by
It
14.
shouldn't be any wider than 7 feet on a house this small.
It really should be 14 feet long.
It's going to, it's
I
just
think
going to.
on here, again, I had him change it. I think the new length is like 11 or something. It was,
11 by
And he moved the
and maybe
dormer,
9's
the
too
dormer
wide.
over,
He
moved
slid the dormer
He
over.
slid the dormer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on my drawing. It's supposed to be in this packet.
It's not changing this at all. This is the same roof walk, the same place.
I sat there and watched him do it in CAD, so.
I don't know what he was doing, because it's always still too wide.
Is it tighter?
Well, make recommendations on what the dimension should be. I mean,
I
yeah.
think 7 is
The-
too small.
I-
No, not on a house like this.
I know
Well, there's
the,
9 now, what if you did 8 and 11?
I'm open to whatever works. I know the one constraint he was running into is that you need an egress window on that third floor, and you couldn't have the post coming down into the dormer. So it was, there was like a, yeah, exactly.
You might need to shrink or slide the dormer, I don't know how quite.
Yeah.
The dormer actually cannot have the dormer is not going to be an egress window. He's got egress windows. If he's going to put an egress window, they have to be on the gable ends.
Yeah, wouldn't
That
that be,
dormer
that,
cannot.
That's just what he told me.
I don't know what the hell he said.
that wouldn't be, you can't, an egress window you have to be able to fit a fireman with his full gear through it. No fireman's going.
I'm not, personally, I don't know how everybody else feels, I'm not willing to give him a casement window in the third floor dormer. Okay, not doing it.
Negatory.
So if he's going to have, I don't know what does your third floor look like?
It's
What if it was,
basically just open with the back.
what if it's swung in?
We've had such trouble.
I mean, you're not going to see it for what it's worth anyways.
It's that little hoopy up in the attic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the dormer.
That's it.
If you took that out, it's not going to make that much difference.
If he can put an egress window on the gable end.
Those are both, I would think those are both the egress.
No, one isn't, one's too small.
Do you have
He
to
can
have
put
two?
one there. No.
No, you need one means of egress.
Right, he just need one. He doesn't need the bathroom. He can put the egress window over
He
here.
needs to put a bigger window on that end.
Are we
Go.
going for revisions here, or are we trying to pass this thing?
Well, we don't have a full set of plans. because he
Yeah.
didn't give us one.
So we have an idea.
Make a motion to hold for,
Revisions.
So moved.
and we're all okay with the demo, the three of us?
Yeah.
And how old is this garage that we're demoing?
It's 1955, I think.
Yeah.
Can you just confirm, somebody combined all of the demo applications that were previously
Okay.
submitted? So it's labeled A, B,
B.
C.
Then
B.
we're on the same lot.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
B is the correct
B
one.
is the, I wasn't sure, I know I have an email back
Go
in
in
the
and fix
office.
those files.
I
No,
will.
no, I can fix it. I think it was, I can fix it. I just want to make sure that they're signing the correct demo for B.
B is the correct one.
So we're okay
So-
with the demo.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so in terms of revisions, clean up the widow's walk,
Fix that dormer somehow.
fix the dormer
Maybe
somehow,
on one of the ends.
and then the windows on the small plans are generally acceptable.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
talk to thy neighbors.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
About this, something totally outside our jurisdiction.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right, so Abby's
Okay.
made a motion on the demo to hold to track the house, correct? All those in favor of that? Aye. No, you're not on the demo. And Abby's made a motion on the new house to hold for revisions. Is that right?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Fix it.
Yep.
Okay, next, just for your edification, everybody, next, we're gonna try to keep it as the only thing on. Next Thursday, we've got all these massive projects. Sacham's Path is coming in with all 40 of them, but only like the 7 basic designs. And then, they sort of switch them up, turn them around, things like that. So I've already given them some preliminaries because they're working off of people on the Cape and they sort of ran amok on a few things.
Awesome stuff done already.
A long time ago, they changed it because DHCD at the state made them change everything because of cost. So they had to redesign them all, every one of them. So they're coming in just for us to take a look at them before they make an actual application because they're 40 units. And they want us to just approve like the basic 7 or 8, and they'll show us where they are. And I did get an email with all those on it, and I'll ship it out to you, but they're beginning to change some of the stuff that was clear. They had whole walls with no windows.
Would it be possible to meet at noon? Because I'm a doctor's appointment.
Would noon work for everybody?
What day is
Next
this?
Thursday.
It's Thursday.
As long as the room's available.
I'm definitely not here next Thursday.
And still gonna try to go?
Yes. I am.
I'll be here until 12 o'clock.
You're here, Diane.
Yeah.
Dawn's
If
here,
it
I'm
works
here.
out to do it at 12.
Because Ray's not here, so it's gonna be Diane, Christine, Dawn, and myself,
And John.
whatever. So that's what we're gonna be, because Jason can't do it, and Abby's gonna be away and Ray's away, so, okay.
Where's she going now? Where?
She tried to go today.
Where? Snow.
Someplace not here?
Ironically, I'm trying to go skiing.
You don't have, you can just put on your cross-country skis and go.
That's what I'm saying. Go over to Dead Horse Valley, it's thick.
Go crazy.
Diane's made a motion to adjourn at 3:19. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You go skiing because he's too much snow.
Now I go out and dig the Zap's driveway.
Yeah, the other house.
So I'm happy to have a conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,